In just about 40 minutes from now, President Vladimir Putin of Russia will be touching down in India's national capital in what is all set to be the biggest ever summit between India and Russia, between President Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India. It's the 23rd India-Russia summit. The president is going to be in India for 27 hours. His aircraft will be landing in about 40 minutes. We're beginning our non-stop rolling coverage of the arrival of one of India's most time-tested friends, Russia, at a crucial time in global geopolitics. On NDTV, over the next 27 hours, I promise you a front row seat to what we're calling the big Putin parade, and that's what it's going to be, with ceremonials, agreements, and a huge dose of body language and bromance between these two leaders. But I'm not alone as we kick off our special rolling coverage here on NDTV. Always such a joy to be joined by my friends Padmaja and Vishnu, the three of us.
Dramatic entry.
Well, dramatic is how the arrival of Putin is going to be. So I'm just trying to set the mood, guys. We've got our teams out there at the IGI airport waiting to welcome Vladimir Putin. Let's begin by, you guys want to say something before we go to our breaking news?
I think it's very significant that you said that, we are here, friends and colleagues, talking about it, because that one word, friendship, is pretty much going to define the next 27 hours. The fact that the Prime Minister himself is going to receive Putin at the airport when he touches down, the kind of bonhomie, the kind of body language, Vishnu, that we've seen between the two, the way they address each other, my friend Modi, that is not lost on anyone.
He flies in an Ilyushin 96 aircraft, Shiv.
The Ilyushin 96 is a, big wide-body passenger jet. Vishnu,
you asked me for my opinion, Vishnu. So that's the first thing that came to my mind. We can talk about Putin later.
Vishnu in a few minutes from now is going to have a flight radar screen up. He's going to show you the live arrival of President Putin.
Flight radar has put the transponder off, so we are unable to actually...
Which means you tried.
I tried.
You sneakily did try.
I did. It was the most, Padmaja, the most tracked flight in the entire world on flight radar.
Vishnu is already on the radar of the Russians. Let's make no mistake about that. But the big story right now, of course, is that VIP protocol is in place at the Delhi's Palam airport. The Palam terminal is where all visiting dignitaries land. It's controlled by the Indian Air Force. Putin will be landing in his, like Vishnu said, his Ilyushin 96 aircraft in about 35 minutes from now. And the Prime Minister of India is likely to receive Putin. Vishnu,
but there's a story here, Shiv.
This is befitting as well.
No, but the story is a couple of hours back when I reached out to our sources to inquire whether or not it would be the Prime Minister, they were rather cagey about the information and suggested, oh no, but we never heard of anything like this. And I'm thinking to myself, it would probably, Padmaja, have been the befitting thing. But there was a little bit of, we don't know anything. And I realized that they knew exactly what was likely to take place. So there is a strong expectation of the Prime Minister being there, certainly the External Affairs Minister being there as well. But that's not surprising at all. The Prime Minister has an incredible relationship with Vladimir Putin. And
I wonder if they're going to ride in the same car. Remember the last picture of the two of them together was that amazing car ride, the two of them. And in fact, all of us were on air at that time as well. And the messaging, the fact that this is his first visit after the beginning of the war, he is going to be in India. The message is going to be sent out to the west. It is going to be sent out to our neighbor in the north as well. What happens at the airport, the hug, the ride, all of that is going to be on everyone's radar, no pun intended. Let's go straight across, in fact, to Aishwarya, who joins us from the Palam technical area. The protocol has already been put in place. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Well, that's right. And Prime Minister has done it in the past, be it Barack Obama, be it Sheikh Hasina, be it the Prince of Saudi Arabia. It is Prime Minister Narendra Modi who had breaking that protocol, receiving them and coming down to Palam Technical Airport. But what I can confirm to you is that the Prime Minister's protocol is in place. The SPG has arrived over here at the Palam Technical Airport, and where media personnel usually cover these dignitaries while they arrive on their state visits, we have been pushed 100 meters back just because the entire area had been converted into a fortress, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with senior ME officials, the ministers from the Indian government, to receive Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is coming with a large delegation, would be receiving them personally. And let me show you this quick visual before I tell you the other story around it as well. As the complete area has been barricaded, it's been sealed completely for the traffic as well, and there has been SPG in place, Indian and Russian flags all over the entire passage on display. There has been huge posters of welcoming Vladimir Putin that has been on display as well. Cultural shows and India's heritage would be on display inside the Palam Technical Airport as soon as Vladimir Putin would be landing.
And we will have those live pictures once the president's aircraft lands at the Palam Technical Area in Delhi. But Vishnu and Padmaja, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's very likely that the Prime Minister is going to receive his friend Vladimir Putin in Delhi in a few minutes from now. I don't know whether they're going to ride in the same vehicle, but let's remember and tell our viewers that these are two leaders who do their own thing. Of course, they follow protocol, but it is very much up to them whether they want to travel in the car together. I'm going to wager and say that sometime during this trip, they're going to sit in the same car.
So I think what the Russian president is likely to do is he's going to be going off to his hotel, that's the Moria, not too far from the airport. And then he has dinner with the Prime Minister tonight.
Yeah.
So whether or not they exit the airport in the Beast, the Russian heavily armored vehicle, which President Putin sort of uses across the world or not, that remains to be seen. But just for the benefit of our viewers, tomorrow is going to be the really big day when it all starts. There will be that very warm reception dinner that the Prime Minister has with President Putin today. But then tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. is the ceremonial welcome at Rashtrapati Bhavan. They'll be moving to Rajghat after that. There'll be Hyderabad House, where the India-Russia annual summit is going to take place. That's essentially what this visit is all about. They'll be going to the Bharat Mandapam later on in the day for the India-Russia Business Forum. And then at night, President Murmu will host a presidential banquet. The Russian president is, of course, chief guest before he departs for
Russia. So it's a 27-hour trip to India.
And in fact, on the agenda, whatever the government of India, the sources are indicating at this point, the biggest talking point is going to be business. At a time where the West has tried to isolate Russia, Putin's visit here making it absolutely clear that we have other channels open. We are talking to China, we are engaging with India, and we have plenty of options in front of us. The visit will go a long way in strengthening economic cooperation because of the large delegation of business people and very different avenues open before India. Would you like to talk through some of that? Because they're talking about how you've got Indian exports to Russia, exports in the field of pharmaceuticals, automobiles, agricultural products, marine products, but of course, defense. Shiv.
Yeah, I mean, huge. Vishnu and I, in fact, right before this broadcast, we just locked up the latest episode of our defense podcast, which crystal ball gazes all the big things that are going to be on the table when Putin is here. And it's huge. The relationship between India and Russia, especially under these two leaders in the last 11 years, I would say, has in many ways amplified those sweeteners. Defense, military cooperation, weapons deals, all of those things are definitely on the table. But like you rightly said, that enormous CEO delegation that's traveling with Putin, we can't ignore that, Vishnu. That's the flavor of the day. I agree with Padmaja. Defense is there. Defense is the reliable layer of this relationship. Nothing can shake that. But the business, the trade, the agreements, the manufacturing, the partnerships, that is what is on the table here.
Yeah, so there'll be no defense deals, Padmaja, which are going to be signed this time. There would be a little bit of an impetus to existing deals. For example, the deal for submarines, one submarine, a nuclear-powered submarine, which might, be pushed along because that's been signed and done. It's been delayed. And what will take place, as you mentioned, is a clear effort by India to push through pharma, auto. There is a trade deficit which exists between Russia and India. It is India's goal to step up our exports to Russia. When it comes to Russia, they've been exporting a lot of their weaponry to India. Crude oil, of course, which forms the large bulk of Russia's exports to India. That's gone down a little bit because of American sanctions. But India wants to ensure that this is business. But defense, it's a great talking point because I think even now it's approximately 60% of our armed forces rely on Russian weaponry. But Delhi's interest is, exactly as you mentioned. It's pharma, auto, it's setting up the
agricultural products,
economic corridor between Chennai and Vladivostok. It's all of that which we're looking at.
And of course, a lot of spotlight remains on the defense imports that India has, but there is a lot happening. Behind the scenes, all the talks have happened for Russia at a time. And let me also get in our guests at this point. We've got Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, Strategic and International Studies at CSIS, is joining us, along with former Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, Defense Analyst with us, Lisa Curtis, Director for Indo-Pacific Security at the Center for a New American Security and former Deputy Assistant to the President and NSC Senior Director for South and Central Asia in the first Trump administration, and Dr. Brahmachalani, geostrategist and columnist, joining us now. Dr. Brahmachalani, I would like to start with you first. Business. For Russia, this is an important trip. Why? And why is business at the center of it all?
It's a good question. And that has very much to do with Russia's growing dependence on China. China has become Russia's critical economic lifeline thanks to Western policies. The West has pushed Russia closer to China through unprecedented sanctions and by isolating Russia from the Western markets. Now, President Putin, by coming to New Delhi, is both signaling that Russia has options beyond China, that Russia will not become a junior partner of Beijing. But more importantly, he's trying to show, by bringing in 75 CEOs from Russia, that Russia is very serious about reducing its economic dependence on China by building stronger economic ties with India. The bilateral relationship between Moscow and New Delhi has largely been concentrated on two sectors, defense and energy. But if what Putin is seeking to do, and this is very much in India's own interest, that this relationship broaden to greater economic depth and actually become a partnership, not just dependent on defense deals or energy deals, but actually the trade and economics become the drivers of the Russia-India relationship. If that were to happen, it would really make Russia more independent of China. Also, it will help India to reduce the trade surplus with Russia. And overall, it'll be good for India's strategic autonomy and also for Russia's own strategic autonomy. So in that sense, I think this emphasis on economic and trade issues is very important. But I think it's also very important for Russia and India to operationalize what I would call a sanctions-proof partnership. That is a partnership that cannot be derailed by Western sanctions. And at the heart of this challenge is to develop payment mechanisms that bypass Western financial controls. It's very important for the two countries to settle their trade more and more in national currencies, but also to institutionalize payment mechanisms that bypass the SWIFT system and the US dollar, because ultimately, if this relationship is to progress and pick up momentum, it's very important that they have payment mechanisms that are sanctions-proof.
All right, let me cut across now to Vishnu and Shiv as well, because S-400 has been the buzzword ever since Operation Sindoor. Now S-500 also on the table. Why? They'll tell you.
You know, this is an incredibly intricate relationship, but this is something that Vishnu and I have been looking at all year long. The S-400 is a missile system that's already in service with India, Vishnu, but the S-500 is something that Putin is pushing towards India. Tell us a little bit about both these systems and why they're so important.
So I'm going to walk across to the S-400 that you've got on your side, and just for the benefit of our viewers, this is a system that's done incredibly well during Op Sindoor, it was our first line of defense during Op Sindoor. It was the system which intercepted incoming Pakistani cruise missiles, some of which were incredibly fast. This is the system, Shiv, which knocked out that Pakistani AWACS aircraft at a range of 314 kilometers, which is a world record.
Yeah.
So in as much as the S-400 is able to do this extremely well, what you've got or what we've got actually on this side is the S-500, which is still in development, but it is a system which can intercept incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles. They look very similar. It's the missiles and the engagement radars and the long-range radars which are different. An intercontinental ballistic missile comes in at Mach 14 plus, 14 times the speed of sound. This system, the S-500, is able to launch its missiles to intercept incoming ICBMs in space.
No, so
that's what it's
the S-400 that Vishnu was just talking about, remember, it was ordered by India in 2018 as part of the biggest deal, Vishnu, that India and Russia have signed so far, $5.5 billion. Those missile systems performed incredibly well. They were game changers, as Vishnu said, during Operation Sindoor. And that's the reason why India is about to order 5 more. We're going to double our order for S-400s. That'll happen after the Putin summit, of course. But the S-500 is that big game changer that the Russians are now trying to push, which could be a co-production where, unlike the S-400, which was bought off the shelf from Russia, the S-500 could actually be built as part of a joint venture between India and Russia. And talking about...
Shiv, just a few, just a few details about the S-400 itself. What you see actually over here on our screens are the missile launchers, right? The S-400 has several missiles that it can actually fire, about 5 missiles. Some which can hit targets at about 40 kilometers, some going up to 400 kilometers. So it's got different missiles for different ranges. It's got very impressive long-range radars and an engagement radar. It's not just this, it's this plus various components, and they're all mobile.
No, so,
that's what's the big deal.
$10 billion in terms of the S-400, many multiples of that for the S-500 mean that defense, needless to say, as Padmaja was saying as well, is the big sweetener of this relationship. But speaking of Operation Sindoor, where Russia actually affirmed what a reliable diplomatic ally it is, take a look at this.
When the storm hit Delhi, Moscow didn't blink. Because some friendships never fade. They forged themselves in fire, and in Operation Sindoor, that iron bond showed its strength again. Russia, India's all-weather friend, a partnership older than most of the systems it built. The results were crystal clear on the front line. There were pinpoint strikes as silent shields defended Indian territory. All this while jets roared with intent above. At the tip of the spear was the BrahMos, and during Operation Sindoor, it spoke with devastating accuracy. Targets deep behind enemy lines hit with surgical precision, fast, fearless, and totally unmatched. Above the battlefield, another giant stood guard. The S-400, a shield of radars, a wall of electronic eyes, drones and incoming threats, intercepted, blinded, forced to turn back or be turned to scrap metal. And then came the Sukhois, the aircraft India knows as its own, Russian by origin and Indian by production. Their strikes were sharp and decisive. But the story runs deeper than one operation, from historically being buyer and seller to now becoming co-creators. Manuals have transformed into shared blueprints and imports into joint technology. BrahMos proved it, the S-400 underlined it, and Sukhoi has stamped it. New collaborations are reinforcing it. And now the leaders meet again in New Delhi with the message as clear as daylight. This bond is no fair weather friendship. It's tested, trusted, and has been hardened by the sands of time. While Operation Sindoor will be remembered for its precision, it will also be remembered for a partnership that has held strong for decades together. An unrivaled tale of two nations with one massive battlefield edge forged together.
And what we can tell you is that Vladimir Putin's aircraft is about to enter Indian airspace. It's over Pakistani airspace. I'm tracking it on Flight Radar 24. It just flew over Rahim Yar Khan Air Base.
A base that India hit during Operation Sindoor. Vishnu
I wanted to say
it.
that.
He wants to say it.
Did you hear that? He just wouldn't let me say it. Anyhow.
Go ahead.
Joining us now, Lisa Curtis. Lisa, thanks very much for being with us. How would you respond, or how would anybody respond to the argument that given the changes in the relationship between India and the United States, the fact that we've had sanctions, that there have been tensions, there have been rather open disagreements, not least of all about Op Sindoor and how it went, that many in New Delhi would likely feel that, look, at the end of the day, it's Russia which is the most reliable diplomatic ally that we have?
Well, I think that's clearly the message that is being sent by this major visit by President Putin to India. I think India is sending a message that, no matter the kind of pressure that President Trump wants to put on India, the tariffs and other, pressure points, that India will value its strategic autonomy, and it will continue to pursue relationships with countries that it trusts and relies on. Unfortunately, I think that this visit will boost Putin at a time that he deserves international isolation. Yep. He's escalating the war in Ukraine. He's threatening Europe with drone incursions and cyber attacks. So it's the timing is very unfortunate because it is going to give a boost to Putin when he shouldn't be receiving that boost. But I think, for India, they have felt pressured by the Trump administration, the tariffs, the high tariffs. And then also, I think there's a sense of betrayal might be too strong of a word, but they're disappointed in President Trump's response to the 4-day conflict between India and Pakistan in May. Whereas the Russian S-400 came through for India, India relied on it during that conflict. On the other hand, President Trump has tried to emphasize his role in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. So there's been a strong disagreement on the version of events between India and the United States. So I think, all of these factors make this visit very significant. And the real question is, how will President Trump respond to the visit? We don't know. He's fairly unpredictable, but will he notice this visit and will it anger him? Or is there too much going on in the rest of the world that this won't come across his radar?
I have a feeling he'll say something. It may not be immediate, may not be during the visit, but it'll come out in some form, manifest either as a Truth Social post or in some kind of action that he might actually take, or even a soundbite. But, this is a special broadcast that we're bringing to you here on NDTV that is split between Delhi and Moscow, from where the president's aircraft took off a few hours ago. It's about to land. It's going to be landing in a few minutes from now, and we'll be live at the Palam Airport in Delhi for that arrival. But I want to very quickly take you across to Dasha Chernyshyova, who joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, welcome to our coverage. Thanks for being with us. The big summit begins tomorrow, Dasha, but tonight, just after your president arrives, there's a big private dinner with Prime Minister Modi.
Absolutely, and we have heard the Russian president ahead of this trip telling the Indian media that there is some sort of personal bond between himself and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So certainly this is something that will be followed, and the Russian president is going to India with a very clear understanding that India is a long-standing partner of Russia, be it in the bilateral relationship or the international track. They are partners on numerous organizations, including including BRICS, something that has emerged to become even greater important over the past couple of years, since Russia has been finding itself in a different position from the West and looking for the partners elsewhere, especially in the countries of the global South. And this relationship is certainly something that will be only serving to boost the bilateral ties that these two countries have.
You know, Dasha, it's been less than 4 months, and this is the second meeting that's going to take place between the two of them. Are they going to carry forward some of the momentum from their earlier 45-minute chat that they'd had? And we're going to see that not just in the engagements tomorrow, but also the talks that take place privately today.
Yeah, precisely. But we have to keep in mind that this is a very long-standing relationship, and the expectation is that it will only be getting deeper. Now, the Russian president is going to India with a very clear agenda. They want to extend the portfolio of their trade relationship, because so far many have been saying that it is sort of unbalanced. They want to balance it out. From the Russian side, we also understand that there is appetite to make sure that the Indian imports of Russian energy exports keep flowing, although there have been also very many statements coming from the Russian side that Moscow understands in what position India is finding itself under the pressure from the West, especially the Western sanctions, and most recently US sanctions over Russia's Rosneft and Lukoil companies. And the Russian president is certainly traveling to make sure that it can offer something in return. And obviously that dinner diplomacy is something that will be serving those goals as well. And keep in mind, the Russian delegation is huge. The Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri Shakov, ahead of this trip, has been saying that it was very difficult to cut that delegation members because there were so many members of the Russian representatives who were willing to go to the trip as well.
All right, Dara, we'll come back to you in just a moment from now. I wanted to go back to Ambassador Sajjanar. Before I come to him, President Putin's flight is now over Indian airspace. He's over Rajasthan on the stage. He should be in Delhi, landing in the next couple of minutes. Ambassador Sajjanar, on the oil front, we were among the largest importers of Russian crude till just a few weeks back. Then, of course, America sanctioned Russia, as a result of which it became unviable for our oil importers to continue with any large-scale import of Russian oil. Is there a sense that India will return to importing Russian oil, assuming the war in Ukraine comes to an end?
Yeah, thank you very much, Vishnu, for having me. The offtakes till November, that's still last month, have been, in November, it was the highest ever. What we are expecting is that from this month onwards, the decline is going to take place. So energy, both as far as fossil fuels are concerned, also as far as nuclear energy, because we put it under one rubric, both of them are very, very important. In fact, Russia is the only country which has supplied nuclear reactors to India, notwithstanding the fact that we got the unique one-time waiver, from the IAEA in 2008. There is no other country that has supplied this. It's only from Russia that we've got in Kudankulam, and now, 6 more in Andhra Pradesh. But as far as oil and fossil fuels, the oil imports are concerned, it is quite likely, because as we have said, that, we tell our people not to go out and buy, Russian oil, but we tell them to go out and buy the most competitive, oil that you are able to procure on the global markets. Mm-hmm. So I think this is what they are going to see with Rosneft and Lukoil are down. Yeah. They account for about 55 to 60% of all the oil generation and exports from Russia. There are other companies which are not under sanction. Definitely from those, we will continue to buy that. Okay. But I think there's the determination on both sides. You just had a discussion about increasing trade between the two countries, bringing it to $100 billion by 2030. I have done 2 tenures in Moscow. And around both those tenures, one in the early 90s when it was a part of the Soviet Union, late 80s, part of the Soviet Union, and late 90s when it was Russian Federation. Trade for a two countries which are special and privileged strategic partner has been quite dismal, if I can use that expression. It's been just in the range of $10-12 billion. You compare it to what we have with China, more than 100. You compare it what we have with United States, about 200, and so on and so forth. So right now, the impetus, the boost that has been given is due to the import of oil and fertilizer and vegetable oil that we are getting from the United States. Out of the 69 billion, only about 4.5 billion are exports from India. So I think the
Ambassador, you
focus...
make a really important point that it's essentially one-way traffic. I'll come back to you in just a moment. Air Marshal Chopra.
Just wanted to tell our viewers, Vishnu, that those are live pictures that you see on your
Palam
screen right now from the Palam airport. So if you watch your screen in about 10 minutes from now is when...
No, it's going to take a bit more time than that.
Okay.
So 10 minutes, the Prime Minister is going to be there. Within the next 10 minutes, the Prime Minister is going to be at
the Prime Minister's cavalcade is leaving towards the airport.
President Putin's flight is still at 34,950 feet.
Okay, so it's going to take about maybe 15-20 minutes to land. But I just wanted to show you those pictures because NDTV's cameras are out there. Hopefully, we'll catch a glimpse of that Illusion 96 actually landing. But I wanted to bring Air Marshal Chopra in as we get those live pictures back on our screens. Air Marshal Chopra has spent many months, if not years, in Russia. I know that for a fact. Overseeing one of the crucial upgrade programs of the Indian Air Force, the MiG-21 BIS upgrade, if I'm not mistaken.
It became the Bison.
He knows a thing or two about Russian defense. And Air Marshal Chopra, it's an interesting time that Putin is here because you've had Donald Trump literally tell India, you better not buy any more Russian weapons. And here he comes with a bag full of offers. We've got many things on our list that we need to order from the Russians, like the S-400. Minutes before Putin arrives, what's your take?
Yeah, Shiv, I must say that the greatest media hype has been on defense equipment, mainly because, some of it makes great visuals. You've seen the Su-57, mother of all these.
You're calling out the TV wallas.
Yes, surely it is going to be spoken of, but nothing it can come off just like that. Yeah. So much of detailed discussion will have to take place, and we remember that we have come out of the FGFA program in 2018, which was the predecessor to the Su-57. But surely additional missiles, about 10,000 crores for the S-400 will be there, the S-400 deliveries, which is more related not so much to production, but more related to balance of payment issue will be discussed. Surely 5 additional S-400 we require, maybe actually we require 15 because we have a continental size country. So this is surely going to be a hot ticket. As for 500 will be spoken of and they will request that such an offer. Mind you, only one system is operational as of today. It's around Moscow, and it will be some distance away. If it comes, it will be in 2030s. So, but there are other programs like the medium transport aircraft, which the Russians are trying to push. They are still wanting the Ka-260, which is the light utility helicopter. They very much know that our own LUH by HAL is still, is behind time. It's still at the technology demonstration stage, not even reached prototypes. So there are going to be issues. We are going to look for the R-37M, the long-range, missile, which is required for air-to-air. They may even mention about this Sukhoi Superjet SJ-100, for which HAL has recently signed an MOU in Russia. Of course, Chakra 3. The current timelines in public domain is 2028. Maybe India would want it to be, hastened. There are issues on the Indo-Russia rifles because...
Air Marshal Chopra, what you've reminded us of is one thing that's very funny, which is that if we start listing every item on the defense and trade relationship between India and Russia, we will have to probably spend 27 hours actually doing that. Vishnu and I just did that a moment ago, and it's incredible how many things there actually are. Vishnu, nuclear is also on the table. There's also nuclear.
So we are looking at a miniature. In fact, if
Prime Minister's cavalcade,
all right, Prime Minister's motorcade over there entering Palam. These images coming in to our viewers from Palam Airport. We can see those vehicles, one with the India flag. A couple of them. These are the armored vehicles that the Prime Minister uses. The Russian president should be landing in a couple of minutes from now. But Jan Krishna, if I can come across to you. I think Shiv raises an important point, energy cooperation. And we're now talking about modular and small-sized nuclear reactors. We've seen Russia lately have a big role in the Kudankulam nuclear plant. Do you expect to see any developments in energy cooperation?
See, one thing is very clear, Vishnu, that, I think India has been the largest crude oil importer, perhaps second largest after China from Russia. But, after the American sanctions against a few Russian companies, this slowed down a bit, even though the overall offtake in November was higher than the earlier month. So I think, they need to figure out that, how to not to stop or not to slow down the crude oil import from Russia, these sanctions notwithstanding. I think that's very important. But I think more than the crude oil, I think it's the overall trade deficit which India has vis-a-vis the international trade between Russia and India. I think that's very important. This deficit in favor of Russia and against India was about $3.4 billion in 2020. Now, last year, full year that we have the data of, it rose to $63 billion. I think this in today's day and age, is not acceptable at all, because India typically imports, defense equipment, oil we just talked about, fertilizers, edible oils, and so on and so forth. But there's hardly any critical mass in any of the products that we export to Russia. I think that is something which, and fortunately with Russia, we do not have as many tariff barriers, but there are more of non-tariff barriers which are troubling India. Otherwise, products like pharmaceuticals, garments, textiles, shrimps, and other marine products, I think there is even farm products, there's no reason why India should not be exporting it big time. And while it may not be on the agenda, but I think somewhere it will also be discussed that shouldn't India have a free trade agreement also with Russia, the way we have just concluded with UK, with UAE, with Australia, and also discussing with European Union. I think this is very, very important. Otherwise, no matter how much we talk about the relationship, time-tested one, a historic one, a great one, but there's a complete imbalance.
Half a second, just give me 1 second. Just want to edge in. Yeah, go ahead,
we've been talking about how India is trying to bump up its trade with Russia. How is America going to take that? Because that really is going to be the next big question. India is unimpressed by any pressure that has been put on it so far. What kind of reaction do you foresee from America?
Is that the question to me?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, one thing is very clear. India can't keep on laying all eggs in the American basket when it comes to exports from India to the US, right? It just can't happen, right? We have seen that, how unilateral and a partisan levy of, import of duty of tariff of 50% has been levied. And half of that is because of India continuing to import crude oil from Russia. So I think no matter what America feels, frankly, India should not care beyond a point. I'm not trying to say that our relationship with the US is not important. It is important. US is the second largest trade partner for India, and US is the country where we get the maximum amount of FDI. But it does not mean that we will develop that and further that relationship at the cost of our relationship with other countries. That cannot happen, just cannot happen. But I think areas more than the trade imbalance between India and Russia, another thing which is very important is there's hardly any foreign direct investment that we get from Russia. I think that is also very, very important.
No, all of these things are going to most definitely be discussed. They are being discussed. Like you said, a trade agreement between India and Russia definitely on the table. Huge potential for what to achieve between these two countries. As Ambassador Sajjanar said, live pictures of the Prime Minister's motorcade reaching the Delhi Palam technical area. This is the VIP portion of the Indira Gandhi International Aerodrome, which is controlled by the Indian Air Force and the VIP squadron that operates from there. That's where VIP dignitaries land. It's a special arrival area where the Prime Minister of India, who has just arrived, as you can see in these pictures, Padmaja and Vishnu, he will be there. So, like we first reported earlier this afternoon, this is not disproportionate at all. This is a relationship that India takes, preeminently. It's an important personal relationship between the two leaders as well. So I'm not surprised even slightly that the Prime Minister...
Let me ask you this, Vishnu. How is this decided? Because it's the kind of protocol that is accorded to which visiting dignitary. How is it decided that, so-and-so will be received by the MOS External Affairs or the External Affairs Minister or the Prime Minister himself?
So in the case of most leaders, Padmaja, there's a minister in waiting, and that doesn't have to be the Minister of State for External Affairs or the External Affairs Minister. It's a designated minister who comes and greets the visiting leader. But in the case of important relationships and ones where there is a personal equation, you do see the Prime Minister very occasionally making this gesture. It's actually a gesture of friendship. And I can tell you that this is something that's not necessarily planned out well in advance. It happens reasonably spontaneously. The Prime Minister
chances are Mr. Putin won't know that he'll be received by the Prime Minister.
When I reached out to my sources about 4 hours back, and I said that, is there a possibility of the Prime Minister, sort of being there? Their answer was very simple. Vishnu, we don't really know at this stage. Why do you ask? And I said, well, it does seem to be likely, don't you think, given the relationship? And then, they said they'd get back and they never did. And now we've got these pictures.
We've got Maxim Oreshkin. He's Deputy Chief of Staff of the Russian Presidential Executive Office. Maxim, welcome. Your president's going to be landing in just a few minutes from now. The Indian Prime Minister has arrived at the airport. Anything on your mind, anything you want to say about this big visit right before the President of Russia lands?
Hello. We have a really interesting business forum which happened already today. We started in the middle of the day, and we discussed opportunities for India's business to come to Russia to export goods and services, because we believe that this is the key element of discussions that will be happening tomorrow, how to increase India's exports of goods and services towards Russia. And we believe that there is a lot of opportunities on that, because India is already a third largest economy globally. Russia is the fourth largest economy globally. But the volume of non-energy trade is not in line with the sizes of those economies. So we need to solve system problems. We need to increase communication between our businesses in order to get to much higher volumes of India's export to Russia.
Mr. Oreshkin, in the past, we've seen a couple of problems when it's come to trade between Russia and India because of currency and the transfer of funds. Has that been resolved?
Already now we see that the most of the trade is being done in rupees and rubles, so it's done in local currencies, and there is not that huge problems like it was in the past. But as we will see more businesses, more contracts and more exports from India to Russia, we will see even less problems with all these systemic issues. It's not only about payments, it's logistics that need to be solved, insurance and so on and so forth. So we will be gradually working on each of that issue to make the trade between two countries more comfortable.
Showing our viewers images from the area where your president is going to be landing any moment now. Our Prime Minister has reached the Palam Technical Area, the airport area, to receive him in person. What do you make of this kind of personal relationship, these gestures that both of them, both the leaders, make for each other? The fact that today the Russian president is going to be welcomed by the Indian Prime Minister at the tarmac itself.
Definitely, the relations between the President Putin and Prime Minister Modi are at a very high level. This is true friendship between them, and this, of course, helps us to solve a lot of issues that raise and pushes the relations between the two countries forward. This definitely helps.
Mr. Oreshkin, just in terms of, in your opinion, the big takeaways from this visit, what do you expect?
Well, another big step forward in terms of goods trade, step forward in services trade between the two countries, issues connected with the technological cooperation, especially on the artificial intelligence, and also of more free access of labor force of one country to another jobs market.
Okay. This visit also comes immediately after you had Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in Moscow. What is the messaging from there? That you had that meeting, of course, any of us would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that rather long meeting, but soon after, Mr. Putin is in India.
I believe that there will be a lot of themes to discuss between the President Putin and Prime Minister Modi. Definitely, they will have extensive discussion, I believe, of all global issues. But I'm here to discuss business opportunities between our countries, and we are doing a substantial progress in that area.
Okay, Maxim Oreshkin, appreciate you giving us your time right before the President of Russia lands. We've got these live pictures on our screens, and I'm going to stay with these pictures. There's a tri-service ceremonial welcome. As you can see, the soldiers have all lined up there to receive the President of Russia. They're there, right there on that apron. You can see a few aircraft landing and taking off, Vishnu. That's far in the background. But the Russian president's aircraft, of course, is going to be unmistakable. So I want to stay with these pictures and nothing else right now. Vishnu, a tri-service welcome for the president. The Prime Minister will, of course, also be there on that carpet to receive his friend Vladimir.
No, absolutely. And if I can just request our PCR to bring up flight radar so that, our viewers know where exactly this aircraft is. Just a couple of minutes away. It's the most tracked flight in the world, which is why we want to track it as well. But yes, it's a tri-services guard of honor. The national anthems of both sides, I presume, would be played out. Prime Minister Modi will be, sort of greeting Vladimir Putin. I think Shiv raised an interesting point earlier on. I think it was Padmaja who raised this point earlier on that, will Prime Minister Modi get into the vehicle of the Russian president? The Russian president usually travels in his own vehicle. It's called, well, like the American president's car, it's called the Beast in a sense, but it's a Russian vehicle, heavily armored. It's got, it's blast proof. It's got secure communications, etc., etc.
And has been delivered here ahead as well.
Right. I would suspect more than one of them.
Yeah.
So would that be done for a while, or would they go their own ways? I would suggest that they would actually travel, their own ways, because there is a dinner which the Prime Minister is hosting for President Putin later.
And the reason why we talk about all of this is, remember, this visit also has ramifications on the kind of politics that we see here. We're right in the middle of the winter session of the Indian Parliament as well. And again, one of the long-standing allegations against the government has been that right now you've got nobody in your corner. Everyone, did not stand up for you, did not stick up for you, especially during Operation Sindoor. And all of these countries were put in that same block. In fact, we've had the Congress saying that your friends like America, like Russia, they did not apparently call out Pakistan. They did not vocally put Pakistan on the mat, as it were, for what happened in Pahalgam and thereafter in Operation Sindoor. But these images tell a different story.
He's landed. The president of Russia has landed. We can confirm to you. Pictures just in. These are live pictures from the Palam airport. The president of Russia has landed. Prime Minister Modi there in his motorcade on the apron. So it is going to be a big Kodak moment tonight. The Prime Minister is there in person. These are the first pictures of Prime Minister Modi at the Palam technical area. So that settles that. Vishnu and Padmaja, he's going to be there on the apron. Expect hugs and handshakes as well on the red carpet as the Russian president gets out from his Ilyushin 96 aircraft. I'm still wondering whether they're going to travel in the same vehicle. You never know with these two leaders. Let me put it out there. You never know with the both of them, because they share a bond that is quite rare, quite unique. So there's every possibility that may happen. But like Vishnu rightly pointed out, I think the Russian president goes to his hotel first and then...
But can I just say, Shiv, if he has landed, then there's another aircraft in the air, which is also from the Russian Special Flight Squadron,
decoy,
which is on its way. And that would possibly be a decoy aircraft, right? Or Padmaja, that might be the aircraft that he is landing in, and the one which has just come in earlier on, if indeed that is the case, is the decoy.
Well, this is a special gesture. The Prime Minister has broken protocol. He is there in person to receive President Putin. But what I do want to, ask both of you, the fact that all this while you've got Europe, you've got America in particular, asking India that you must try and isolate Russia. Despite all of that, this personal gesture, going out of your way and saying, not only am I not going to isolate him, I am going to accord him a special welcome in person.
No, but I think this is the most important point in all of this. India's foreign policy has been entirely independent. The word non-aligned is an unfashionable. We call it an independent foreign policy.
Which is funny because again and again we hear the word surrender in the discourse we hear in our country.
The fact of the matter is India has chose to do exactly what we feel works for our interests. So we have a great relationship with the United States, but we've got a great relationship with Russia as well. It's not one or the other. This is the path which has worked well historically. It's certainly something that this government actually takes. And as far as the entire narrative is concerned about countries not being on India's side, the facts
or that
are
India
there.
is kowtowing to one country or the other.
The facts are on the ground on what India achieved. And we've got differences on Donald Trump's sort of interpretation of the sequence of events. But if you actually look at the support that Pakistan has gotten, it's just from a very small handful of nations who protested against India during Op Sindhu, Turkey being one of those countries. And therefore, I'm not sure that we have necessarily lost the diplomatic narrative post-Op Sindhu. We acted decisively.
Far from it.
And I think some of the points mentioned by the opposition, quite frankly, are ludicrous.
In fact, what the Prime Minister said that, earlier we used to talk about having strategic distance. Now we have strategic closeness with everyone, and depending purely on our own interests. We are not going to listen to X person's concerns or say that, we are going to bow before somebody else's pressure. We are going to see where our ends are met.
And exactly. The man on your screen, just to add to what Vishnu said and to answer you, Padmaja, is Narendra Modi is perhaps the only leader in the world. In fact, I'm sure he's the only leader in the world who in the last 18 months has met and hugged both Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. He's a person who has met both President Trump as well as spoken to President Trump as well as President Xi Jinping. A person who has not stumbled off that path of having a completely independent foreign policy. So I agree with Vishnu when he says that while it is tempting to look at every action as a reaction to a temperamental leader like Trump, and sometimes it is, because remember, even diplomacy ultimately is a delicate dance. But the fact is, India's independent foreign policy predates many of these leaders. And that's the reason why we're able to stand strong.
And has told both Russia and Ukraine that this is not the time for war, while being friendly with both of them. Again, saying, listen, it's better you come to the table, you talk about peace, this is not the time of war.
India's foreign policy, Padmaja, has always been, we will be everybody's friend if you're friendly with us, but it's India first. Which is our primary goal. And so this is something that works. I think the point on oil, and this was mentioned earlier on, is that, look, we've got relationships with oil all over the world. We wanted to import from Russia. We couldn't at the present moment, but because we've got great relationships elsewhere, we continue to sort of fill that void for the moment.
But Brahmachalani, what do you make of people who still are wondering, how do we trust, or how much do we trust? It had happened when we were engaging with China, that fine, you're going ahead, you're having those hugs and handshakes, but can you really trust China? How much can we trust Russia? Because one of the factors quoted there is they also have a working relationship with Pakistan. They do trade with Pakistan as well. And with China, of course.
Language को कैसे भारत के
All right, we don't seem to have his audio now. But can I just
don't
say,
think Dr. Chelani is with us.
I think the other point, Padmaja, is that, and you make a great point, is that the Pakistan Air Force's JF-17s have Russian engines.
No,
the same ones as
but it's a fraction, right? I mean, if we look at the kind of trade they have.
It's a problem. India doesn't appreciate Russia. That
but Russia will also look out for themselves.
Their transport, let's look at it from an India standpoint. Pakistan's transport fleet of
China
is Russian. The Russia provides Pakistan with jet engines. So that's a bit of a problem.
Guys, I want to zoom in for a moment to these pictures. Let's just dwell on these pictures in a bit. Once the leaders are here, we'll talk about the trade and other things. Vishnu, the officials you see around the Prime Minister's vehicle right now, because our viewers are very interested in this stuff, are the Special Protection Group, right? Yeah, who are the agencies that will be arriving with the Russian president?
So it's there's a special group which protects the Russian president. There is the KGB as well. There are his inner line of bodyguards who would be sort of coming in at this stage. These images from just a little while earlier on, Prime Minister Modi over there. He's of course protected by the SPG, which is his inner line of protection. So there's a great deal of security over here at this particular time. Remember, this visit does come not too long after the horrific Red Fort blasts which took place, and the plot against India at so many levels, which is a cause of concern. But President Putin has chosen to come over here. He operates under extremely high security conditions, not least of all because of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. If you look at the flight path of his aircraft, he was flying in east of the Black Sea, not too far away from, the center of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, before his aircraft entered Afghan airspace, Pakistani airspace, and I think in just a little while from now, he will be landing. So a couple of aircraft likely landing, either one of which would have him. One might be a decoy aircraft. But the Prime Minister, in this very rare gesture, it is quite rare, it's infrequent, it's not that he's not done it before, sort of sending out a strong message of friendship, sending out a message where he sort of lets everybody know about the warmth of this gesture. Now, how will America look at this? How will certainly European countries? That's interesting because Shiv and Padmaja, as you know, just day before yesterday, we had 3 ambassadors of European nations writing in the Times of India in a joint article that they had serious concerns about Vladimir Putin and the way that he's been dealing with Europe, to which the External Affairs Ministry and sources over there seem to indicate that, look, you're in our country now, so this third-party interference in the name of freedoms to write what you want, let's be respectful of one another. I think that was the basic message. Padmaja?
Absolutely, but it was interesting. You can also look at it from the prism of, well, in India, you do have the right to free speech because you had a very, cogent rebuttal or a response to that coming from Russia as well.